that comes with having had a microphone that I'm very proud of for the audio quality of my YouTube videos, to now not knowing where in the world that microphone is after weeks of searching for it, it's deeply frustrating. But I actually just had a company reach out about giving me a microphone for YouTube, so stay tuned in the next few weeks for that to happen, because this slight echo is affecting my brain. It's very purpley. Today I wanted to talk about some of the lies that we hear about our identity, how those things affect us, yes, but also how we can combat those things and feel more confident as the humans that we are and as the humans that we were created to be. And I also want to say this while fully understanding that a lot of times when I talk about this stuff in public spaces, because a lot of people do know that I love Jesus, I identify as a follower of Christ, that a lot of people want to like jump in and be like, don't be divisive and don't talk about race and culture. This will not be an educational series on why I choose to talk about those things as someone who loves Jesus way more than anything. I'll just be deleting comments that are divisive, because this conversation is not. There are many resources online that my chair is scooting away. There are many resources that serve as an educational space for why these conversations are important, and that's just not what this is today or any day. I'm Black, my mom's Black, my dad's Black. I was on a reality television show called Relative Race, and we did our full ancestry and got to know a ton of our cousins and family members. A lot of them were Black, a lot of them were not. Unfortunately, because of history and reality, my bloodline is not like every single person is from Africa. A lot of that was not by choice. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents are mixed with other things. But for all intents and purposes, I'm Black, my parents are Black. We identify as Black Americans, African Americans, Black folk, Black people, and that's what I want to talk about. For a lot of Black people like myself, we were raised, and we grew up rather, hearing people say things like, you're not Black enough, you talk like you're white, you sound like you're white. Even to like when my music started coming out, a ton of people were always like, I had no idea you were a Black girl, you sound like a white girl on the radio. And then I looked you up and I was like, what, you're Black? And okay, I get that, because some people were just, you know, you're conditioned to hear things a certain way, and then you find out that it's different than when you expect it, and it's like, whoa. But for someone to like look at your face, you're 9, 10, 11 years old, and to say, you're not Black enough, you are a white girl because of how you talk, that's wrong. Another thing I heard growing up is that I must be mixed to look this way. And by this way, I mean that person's perception of attractive or lighter skin or lighter eyes, that one of my parents must be very much like identifying as white or of another race or nationality or ethnicity, because certainly someone who is Black cannot hold this beauty. I got that a lot growing up, even, I mean, into young adulthood and teen years. Be like, you not mixed? Are you sure you not mixed? Nah, you mixed. It's like, I could just be Black and beautiful. It made its way into conversations of health and medicine. When I was in middle school, my neurologist at a very prestigious medical institution here in the Southeast insisted that I did not have Tourette syndrome because I am Black. And my mom was bringing in paperwork and all this stuff saying, my child has all the symptoms of Tourette. It makes sense. She's 9, 10 years old. Like, this is the onset of all this stuff. Tourette is the only explanation. And the doctor's like, you know what? You're right, but she's Black, so she must be psychotic. An actual phrase that was told to my mom more than once, that I must have something called psychotic eyes, because even though all my symptoms, everything in my life added up to having Tourette syndrome, that's what white kids got. That's what white males got specifically. So there must be no possible way that I can receive the diagnosis, because I'm Black. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, to the point where we obviously had to switch doctors and neurologists to get my formal Tourette diagnosis for someone that was not dealing with significant racial bias. It's a hot mess. My teen years, my young adult years were just flooded with, well, like, you don't know Black culture, you don't know the music, so you're not Black enough, you don't know this TV show, you don't know this song, like, your ringer is something from musical theater, so Speaking of my phone, it fell down. And then it found its way into the workplace in my early 20s when peers, but also people who were influential in my life, would tell me things like, Black people are not gonna identify with your music because you're too white or because you're not Black enough. But white people, they're not gonna identify it if you're your, ultimately your true self. Like, you can do you with the guitar, but not you with the rapping. You can do you with the guitar, but not you with anything but cowboy boots. Even though you love cowboy boots, like, we're gonna present it as like, this is the linear, exact, precise, safe Blackness that you can present, because if you go too far Black, you'll scare the white people, and if you go too far into who you are, you'll clearly not identify with Black people either. It's so fascinating how I've gotten older and I have these conversations with other Black people that feel very much like the other Black people, like the weird Black girls, Black nerds, all of us. And we're all collectively realizing, wait, why weren't we all just hanging out together? Because there's a bunch of us. We're not that weird. So I wrote this down and I'm gonna read it exactly from my phone, but I was essentially taught by my peers and influential people in my life that Blackness was one type of speech, one form of communication, one lane to follow. And if I swayed, even in the slightest, I was no longer Black, or I was no longer their definition of what it meant to be Black. I was no longer safe Black, and that was a problem. And let me add that this does not include internal jokes and humor. There's commentary about Black cards and stuff that might be made with me and my friends, but notice I'm saying and my friends, right? It's not me to my friends or my friends to me, but it's a communal thing. There are certain things that might happen between me and my friends as a 30-something-year-old woman. I'm 30, not 30-something, I just love being grown, that I wouldn't joke with my child about because she's 3 and it doesn't mean the same thing. For example, some people may have heard my own husband say he thought I was white when he first heard me on the radio because of the kind of music that he was exposed to growing up, of how Black people sound and how white people sound. But then as he's gotten to know me, he knows I'm Black. It's just his first initial perception. So, you know what I mean? There's a difference if he was 4 or 5 years into the marriage and he's like, nah, you're not Black. That'd be weird. So then the question remains, if you're being told, hey, you are not the thing that God literally created you to be, your identity as a Black person is invalid because it does not match my perception of Blackness, how do you combat this? And how do you not allow this to take a toll on your mental health? Well, I know this because I didn't follow the second half of that for a long time. It did take a huge toll on my mental health, especially in my early 20s. I found myself just very confused all the time because I know I'm Black, I'm happy to be Black, but I was just constantly told that I had to be a certain kind of Black or I couldn't be my full self because that confuses people or scares them. And I'm like, then why is I trying to be friends with the people who scared of me? There are 2 things that I would encourage anybody like me or in a similar situation or environment that I would encourage you to do and to work on so that you can walk through this crazy thing that we call life and just feel encouraged and empowered and confident as you are. I said 2, but I should have said 3. So the first one would be to know who you are. There are so many different elements of my life that make me who I am. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a friend, I'm also a Black person, and I'm also a follower of Jesus. I'm a creative, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm so many different things. I'm also very, very, very Southern, right? So many of my choices and so many of the things that I do are definitely influenced because of being a Black woman and my, history, my lineage being from Africa. And also so many of the choices that I make have to do with being Southern and being raised in Georgia. And sometimes the Venn diagram is sometimes it pulls out a little bit. It depends, My husband, who is from St. Louis, he has a lot of Black culture experiences. Me, from Georgia, I have a lot of Black culture experiences. My dad, who's from Watts, has a lot of Black culture experiences. And so does my mom, who is from Bangor, Bankhead, if you've ever heard Bankhead, it's part of Atlanta. We all have these very specific elements of us that are influenced by Black culture, that are influenced by African culture, that are influenced by city culture, Southern culture, Christian culture. And sometimes it's hard to know exactly like, oh, where did this come from? Like, how did this, how did VBS come to be VBS? Like, what is Vacation Bible School? Is this just Southern churches? Is this just Black churches? Is this white churches? Like, sometimes it's hard to know. And I think the beauty of that is that we are all made up of our experiences and choices and all these things. So know who you are, invest in who you are, know where your family has come from, know the struggles and the challenges, but also the triumphs and the resiliency. Hi, I just wanted to add on, I'm editing right now. So speaking specifically about Blackness, our experiences don't invalidate someone else's experiences. So my experiences where I assume that all Black people know how to do this because every Black person I've ever met in Georgia knows how to do this does not mean that a Black person from the Midwest has any idea what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that the thing that I'm doing is not Black, or it doesn't mean that the person that doesn't know how to do it is not Black. It simply means that this is a part of my Black American experience. That's the cool thing about the Black American experience. And the cool thing about cultural experiences as a whole is that I also might have a white friend who is not Black who attributes that as a part of their Southern culture. Now, if we go back in the history of it, we might be grieved to find out exactly how it came about. A lot of the things about like Black American food, for example, root back to slavery, and that's obviously really sad and depressing. But we also find a lot of triumph and a lot of resilience in those stories when we look at the history of them. So it's really important to know who you are and value those things, but also to know where you came from and be invested in the history of those beautiful things as well. And the second thing is to know where you are, right? And so contextualize, like, where do you live? What is the history of this community? What is the history of this country and this land? Like, how did a house get built here? Was this always a suburban neighborhood? Probably not. So let's like research that a little bit and find out the foundational principles of like where we came from, so that when we are figuring out who am I, what is my culture from? Where is my family from? We can also know the physical being and the physical surrounding of where we are as well. I think it's kind of wild to live in a place and not know a lot about the history. If I ever lived in Nigeria or if I ever lived in Switzerland, I would want to know the history of these buildings and this community and this neighborhood. So no matter where you live, try to figure that out as well. Like, learn about the people and the culture and your surroundings, because there's no way to make a better tomorrow if we don't know what happened yesterday. And the third thing that I would say is to create a safe space to fall and to create. We have to be able to hold both of those things. A safe space to come to and to return to when we feel defeated, when we feel discouraged, when we've been told that we're not who we are, when we've been told that we aren't good enough to be friends with these people. Not that we're like, oh, let me go home to feel safe to be friends with them. No, but just creating a safe space to land when life is hard and when challenges show up and when racism shows its face and when ignorance is spewing at our doors. Creating a safe space, creating a home where you are celebrated for who you are and where you can just embrace that. And also where you can create, where you can draw, dance, sing, write, whatever it is that you do. It doesn't have to be your job, doesn't have to be something that you do for a living. It's just creating, because creating is beautiful. And when you know who you are, you know where you came from, you know about the place where you live, and you know about the culture that's being created around you, you will be inspired to tell those stories and to tell your story on a big stage or the smallest one of all. Either way, it'll be beautiful, it'll be worth it, and it'll be a part of telling your story. My home was always this safe space where anyone was accepted, where all humans were accepted. And the foundational belief of my home is that God made all people beautiful and wonderful and incredible. And the more we are honest and educated and just good people who love Jesus, the more beautiful our home environment can be. So we had all these National Geographics, and we were always like learning about people. We had this book called Children Just Like Me, and we were always learning about kids all over the world. We had this board game where it was all about Black inventors. And so yes, we knew the stories of Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, the stories that often like were obviously very traumatic things within those stories. We knew the stories of Black people that had overcome and Black people that had created and developed and invented things. So for us, yes, we learned about the tragic elements of Black history and American history, but we also learned so much about triumph and resilience and strength. So that's who we were and are as Black women, triumphant and resilient and confident and strong. So even though I may be in the world and hear things like, you're not Black because of how you talk, I'm sitting over there like, baby, I'm an inventor. That's as Black as it gets. Meanwhile, my inventions were like a waterfall because I stacked up a bunch of rocks and poured a cup of water over it, but whatever. I think another thing for us when it comes to our home was the Black entertainment cultural experience. Like a lot of people would be like, oh, you don't know Black TV, or you don't know Black songs, or you don't know Black music. That's not true. I didn't know a lot of like R&B. I didn't know a lot of mainstream comedy, which I do understand, of course, that there are elements of that that are deeply rooted in Black culture. And at this age, I do call it Black music and Black culture. But I knew a lot about Mahalia Jackson. I knew a lot about Scott Joplin. And so I may have known a different side of things. I may have known a little bit more about like jazz and gospel than I knew about like R&B and comedy. But it's all still part of Black culture. And learning to embrace those parts of Black culture just give Black culture and culture as a whole such a bigger picture of seeing all of the incredible contributions that it makes into the world. I went a long time not talking about race a lot, and it was difficult because I was always in environments where race was a topic. You guys have heard me share these kinds of stories like on Twitter and stuff before, that I would go into a church and the pastor would make comments about me being Black and not wanting me to be at the church, but because I can sing or whatever, they deal with it. Or like other bands that I was touring with be like, oh, we don't really support, you know, women doing ministry, but we know that Jamie Grace sells tickets, so, you know, we'll let her stay on this bus with us for months, and hopefully that won't affect her mental health. But identity is one of those things where if you identity is one of those things where people will try to, in their ignorance or arrogance or both, they will try to attack you and use words and comments or even like physical violence to tear you down. So know who you are, know where you are, and create a home, create a safe space to land, to fall, to hide, to retreat, to grow, and to create. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I will see you on Monday. Why did I say that? I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening on Monday. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe, comment down below. If your comment goes away, you need to read more books. Okay, bye.